Is there a connection between fashion and your choice of textile, like the durags that you use for your work? Is there a
Not,
connection?
I mean, there's a connection because it's a fashion object for sure. But I
Yeah.
think for me, that stuff was more about like American and Nigerian, right? Like growing up in a Nigerian household, even though I wasn't born in Nigeria, but then also moving to Nigeria and not one of these moves where it's like I've been going to Nigeria every summer, but like literally my family just decided to move back to Nigeria and I'd never been before. And then kind of dealing with this idea of knowing I'm Nigerian, but also not fully, like even if you leave the country for a long time, like there's a form of disbelonging or disconnection. So the idea of my dad teaching me how to wear a do-rag, but my mom
Mm.
not liking me wearing a do-rag was one of these like weird things for me where I was trying to figure out where does this object kind of like fit in my truth. I'm also a
Mm.
black person that needs to use a do-rag for my hair. So, and then you watch the Nollywood movies and there is like an aesthetic and a swag to like the guys that have the wave cap or the do-rag on, or like either the gangsters or the guys that were like in America before that came back. So that was always
Mm.
interesting to me as a kid and just as a younger person. And like, I think it's about style, but that for me as like a motif is more about living between like that being African or being Nigerian and being American.
Okay. So you talked about when we were talking about the art ecosystem, you talked about the personal, that is the ecosystem within the personal, and then the ecosystem as like this broad structural, professional thing. What do you think about artists like positioning themselves within the structural ecosystem, like the organization of it, the galleries, the fairs, the corporate aspect of it? Do you think, just giving the current state of things, the economy, all of that, politics, like, everything going on in the world, do you believe African artists and artists generally need that ecosystem the way it looks? I personally like the idea of a personal ecosystem because I feel we all need community. We all need that. We all need like what we feel is our community. We all need that. But then there's on the opposite side, there's that structure that we know exists. And we know we have to, not have to, but you do the gallery shows and you might do the fairs to some degree. You need those things. So, what do you think about that? Do you think artists need that structure to be successful? And then what are your thoughts on navigating that kind of structure alone by yourself as an outsider, or within the structure, like having gallery management, having a manager? How do you see like the dynamics of all these things?
It's complicated because I think you don't need it at all, right? Like there's artists, most artists that have made art didn't have any of that. Most artists that we know and are renowned, there was no gallery system before or no robust museum like system. It was patrons and passion, and not to be a romantic about it, but I feel like at the core, when you start to think about, oh my gosh, like we could go deeper into war and the economy could get messed up and no one could want to buy work, it's like you're going to choose if you still want to make work, even if you have to get another job and like make money to live. There's that passion of like, I still want to work. So sometimes I'm like, it's what you're choosing. Obviously, everyone wants to make work and be supported. If a good gallery, can support you and like make that easier for you. But I also feel like my experience is that there's not so much support in galleries like it seems. I think you have to think of the gallery like a store, like they want to sell something you've made that they think is valuable. So a gallery can have your work. The person may never even collect it, but they know they can sell it, but it's not for them. And when I think about it now, like, bless you, I didn't start in the commercial art world. I started grants, residencies, fellowships, because my parents, when they had their nonprofit, that's how they would be able to raise money for like art, material, and programming, was through these grants. So that already gave me the framework that you can make art without and get funding without having to even be known in this kind of commercial way. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't want to be like you shouldn't, like also I work in that system. So it'd be hypocritical for me to be like, oh, it's like overrated. You don't need that. And I've benefited from it. But I think that the issue with those systems is that they start to dictate like what matters. And it's like, I'm kind of the player one in my life, right? Like I'm seeing my perspective. So you have to kind of put your work in a space where it feels like it matters. And I think sometimes the issue with like trying to find a gallery is that you're beholden to like if we like you or we don't. That's why I never liked these apps sometimes, the dating apps, because they just be like you just swipe somebody away if you don't like how they look or if it's a bad photo. And it's like I don't like feeling like I can be dismissed in this way. So with the
Mm.
art world, sometimes it's like I don't like how as artists we feel like we have to like pander or bend to how they're viewing us. Sometimes these people can be disrespectful or can just feel like they have so much power and we're so desperate. And like I feel like I don't feel that way when I'm talking to other artists or older artists or to collectors or patrons. I feel like they're genuinely interested. They're not leveraging power. We're having conversations about the work and maybe, hey, not works about make this many. This would look nice this size. So again, not that every gallery does it, but I believe I mentioned the local network because I'm like, that actually is what matters, I think, for the work and for the journey. I only really care about what other artists think about the work. Museums, again, they matter, but like it's an institution. Whereas like artists, I'm like, you're an individual, you're a person, especially artists I respect, and
Mm.
that's kind of like what I want from it. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question, like how to I mean, I do have strategies for how I've navigated it, but my views around it have changed. So that's my
Mm.
view on it, is that it's not necessary and there are ways to make it to be an artist, and maybe you have to forego wanting to be a commercial artist that's selling all the time, and but there's always a way to just make art and be an artist. But I think if you're talking about like, hey, how can you be a commercially successful artist that's making money? I think there are definitely like, you need a gallery. There's no way that you can, and you kind of need like a good gallery. I don't think there's a way that you can't have a good gallery and be like a commercially successful artist. And I think your gallery also needs to like have good connections and know people. And my strategy has been, how do I get to a good gallery? That's been my like strategy or my game, and that's been through the network. It's been through being able to talk to curators and like doing a lot of stuff on my end, set the groundwork and the stability for a gallery to then come in and be like, oh, this artist is already in these museums, this artist already has relationships with a lot of these curators that we would have been trying to get into their studio. This artist, like I think as an artist, you have to make yourself valuable to have somebody work with you to feel like, hey, there's money to be made here. And I think that relies on like how you've been kind of contextualized and like positioned in the quote unquote fine art world. Thus, the residencies, MFA, being a part of different shows and group shows and stuff like that. Primarily, it's relationships, though.